Thanks everybody for coming to kick off the second semester in the fourth year of this free non-credit lecture series that Hempology 101 has put on. So thanks for all the continued and growing support. This has been the most successful year so far in both the class and online, and it's been really encouraging to see the increased numbers and interest being shown there. And I'll just remind everybody that we have handouts in the front, and if you sign up and come to each one of the lectures and bug me enough, I'll give you a certificate of completion, we call it.
I found the hemp paper.
We found the hemp paper to make them too. And if you're going to come for the whole year, we prefer to make one for the entire year instead of one for each semester, though. So just not to hold people off, but it would just save paper, which is partly what we're here for. We're also, I guess, privileged today in that we have my friend Chris Kant coming for his first time speak in a lecture. And Chris has worked with me in Hempology and is in fact the president of the club, or was the president of the student club here just last year, and now works with me and with his history degree in hand. We hope to have Chris speak on these various issues more often, and we're looking forward to seeing what we can pick from his brain today. So no further ado or ridicule.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Today's topic is hemp history, and I figured that I'd kind of go way back, even before modern hemp and cannabis was developed. Doing some research for the new Hempology textbook, was coming across some interesting facts and synchronicities that I was having trouble explaining in terms of how human beings evolved and how we evolved culturally and individually with the cannabis plant. And this is a theory that's been developed, I think, under other names elsewhere. I call it eco-coevolution, how human beings have evolved with certain plants over a period of millions of years in order to form a symbiotic relationship, and to the point where we're indispensably connected. How this gets into cannabis, first of all, I'm going to get into a little bit of human history. This is a lovely world map. Traditional anthropological study has basically said that about 100,000 years ago, in Africa, Homo sapiens developed, and then they would spread across the globe from there and outcompete everybody else, leaving ourselves with, it's called the out of Africa theory. Basically, human beings spread across the globe in one place, outcompeting all the other near-human species. That theory is actually being challenged now by what is called a multi-regional hypothesis that states that about 2 million years ago, this is way before modern humans, which is about the end of the last ice age, 12,000 years ago. So we're talking millennia. There were different pockets all over the globe, and the continents would have looked much different then, of human and pre-human civilizations. And as the ice ages that would creep in all the way down even to the Saharan deserts and all the way up, would, over these periods of time, cut off pockets of these genetic lines. And so you'd have groups in Africa, in Central Asia, in Europe, where there was still warmth, and they would actually develop for thousands of years on similar and parallel, but not necessarily the same genetic lines. And then the ice ages would retreat, the populations would expand and blend through each other again. At the end of the ice ages, this is about 12,000 years ago, you had this diaspora where everything's stepped back, and then you had in Mesopotamia and Africa, in this region here, this huge mess of different civilizations just explode and start crossing through each other. How this relates to cannabis? Well, the cannabis plant developed a lot along the same lines. So about 2 million years ago, we're looking at the earth coming out of its cold cycles, and cannabis originated, the best estimates come in this region here, the Himalaya region, and the Afghani mountains, the Kush mountains in northern India. And so this I found really interesting doing a study, is how ancient cultures in different parts of the world would utilize the cannabis plant differently. In India, for example, down along the Ganges River, if you note the name, it comes actually from ganja, the hemp plant. The tradition is that Shiva brought the hemp plant down from the Himalayas in his hair with the river, which is an origin story that has a lot of significance for this kind of topic. And so in India, you have a tradition where they used cannabis as a soma drink, as a soporific, something that's going to put you to sleep and put you into a dream state of psychoactive ability where you access higher truths and things like that. The traditions that came out of what is now Kazakhstan and the northwestern plains in southern Siberia and Central Asia, what we would call the more psychedelic experience. You have a little bit of a hardier plant down here. They're more tropical, what we call the indicas, after the name. In the central plateau, you have a little bit of a hardier plant, more psychoactiveness, psychoactivity, and fitting the culture. It would a nomadic culture that spread cannabis actually across the globe. And this is where eco-coevolution comes in. The plant originates here, but it quickly spreads across Asia and Eurasia to Western Europe and all the way to Taiwan. And we find the first evidence of civilizations using hemp as a building product in Taiwan about 12,000 years ago, which is really interesting because hemp is an industrial product, and at the same time you're having hemp or cannabis as a psychoactive product developed elsewhere. This is to do with the regional differences of where the plant is growing. Because of, like humans, having to adjust to the different ecological strains, China and the northeast regions here tend to be more barren and arid, and strains of cannabis coming out of there, what we would call now cannabis ruderalis, lack the THC quality and were more suited to being used as an industrial fiber for clothing. So you find them along here. It's later that cannabis as a medicine is introduced, probably after years of cultivation and the THC developing in more hospitable climates by the Chinese, or introduction from one of the tribal groups that were migrating across the northern plains. There's evidence of that happening later on too. The Gushi, for example, were an Aryan race that were known to transverse right from the Gobi Desert here in China all the way up to the Black Sea region and the Caucasus. And so what you have with cannabis is that over time they've developed to aid the different civilizations. In China as a building structure you see still today, like this hemp board was made there. It's one of their largest industrial fiber crops. It's a staple crop for food still in China for a lot of the villages, anywhere outside one of the cities really. In India, it's traditionally been used as a medicine, as a celebrant, and as an intoxicant.